Hi, everybody. I typically start my presentations by thanking the organizing group and the organizers for inviting me to speak, but today I'm not going to do that. I think that Al Tuman and the folks at AEE ought to go down on bended knee and thank me, because I'm sure there's not another person on this planet that would be foolish enough to try to follow Arnold Schwarzenegger on the stage. So let me let you in on a secret. It really is terrifying. It's not that he's a world-renowned actor. It's not even that he has really influenced culture over the past 3 decades all around the globe. For me, it's because he's someone that I have a serious case of hero worship, because he's the best of policymakers. He has vision, as you saw, and he gets the job done, and he puts people before politics. And that's something that I wish we could just put that in a jar and hand it to everybody up in Congress and in the administration, and and politicians all around the world, we'd be better. But my job here today is to follow Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I am so inspired by his talk, and I'm going to try to take my presentation that I had planned and wrap it around his 3 lessons and talk to you a little bit about what our organization, the Alliance to Save Energy, is doing to try to think differently, to try to message differently, to drive our mission of advancing energy efficiency. So let me start with giving you just a little preview. So I am going to spend just a couple of minutes on a few words about the Alliance. And then Al had asked me to talk about the President's agenda on energy efficiency for this 2nd term. And in order to do that justice, I think we really have to take a look back as a guide to what we can expect in the next 3.5 years. And then I'm going to move and pivot toward what I think the President is doing to employ Arnold Schwarzenegger's lessons of thinking differently and messaging differently, and talk about the challenge that he has put forward to the country to double energy productivity between now and 2030. And then I'm going to wind up with talking a little bit about a pathway and some of the tools and some of the things that we as the Alliance believe need to happen if we are going to make that vision of having our economy be twice as productive from an energy point of view by 2030 as it is today, to make that happen. So first, about the Alliance. We were formed 36 years ago as a result of the first oil embargo and resulting energy crisis. We have a staff of about 70. We're teeny compared to many of the companies you work for, but fairly large in the size of an NGO. We have a $17 million annual budget. We are dedicated solely to advancing energy efficiency, but we do that across the economy in all sectors and around the globe. One of the things that makes the Alliance very important and influential and one of the premier energy efficiency organizations in the world is that we have the active participation of sitting members of the U.S. Congress. Now, the U.S. Congress and Senator Sessions said, that they're not doing a lot. We read a lot of negative things about the Congress, but these folks that are on our board of directors, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, really are putting the people and the need to address our climate and energy issues in this country above politics. And so you'll see here leaders from the Senate like Senator Wyden and Senator Murkowski, the leaders of the Energy Committee. Over on the House side, we have leaders from the House Energy Committee working with us and advancing our goals. And just in the past week, we saw Senator Shaheen and Portman put forward energy efficiency legislation that's now been pulled back from the Congress, but it has, and all of the handicappers have it as the legislation that has the greatest chance on the energy and climate front of making it all the way through this Congress to the President's desk. So we've been very blessed to find 16 members of Congress who will reach out across party lines, who will think differently, and with respect to energy efficiency, at least put the people in front of the politics. They're joined on our board of directors by leading voices from business, from the NGO community, from academia, who are all working together with us to advance our agenda of energy efficiency. And unlike a lot of NGOs, we work very closely with the business community. Going to Arnold's got to be a big tent, invite people in, don't say bad, bad, bad. You say, be part of the solution, work with us, drive energy efficiency. We have 140 different corporations and organizations who are working with the Alliance to advance our goals and to make the U.S. and other economies around the world more energy productive. We've had quite a history of success in this country of driving energy efficiency. The studies that our organization have done show that because of the changes in technology, because of appliance and equipment standards, some of which Governor Schwarzenegger mentioned, CAFE standards, refrigerator standards, light bulb standards, and building energy codes, we have been able to offset the need for 50 quads of energy. That's the green line across the top, showing you how much energy we're saving relative to how much we're using to power our economy. We have doubled energy productivity in this country in the past 35 years. So when I get to, and this is looking a little forward, talking about the President and the Alliance's goal to double energy productivity between now and 2035, we already know, looking back, that it's doable. What we're trying to do is compress the time in which the economy makes that happen. So I like to refer, and this is setting all politics aside, folks. I already said I have a serious case of hero worship with Governor Schwarzenegger, and he's a Republican. I'm going to talk about President Obama in terms of his efficiency agenda. And if you take away the politics of it and look at what the guy's actually done on energy efficiency, I think he's earned the name of champion-in-chief, energy efficiency champion-in-chief. I was at the White House 1 week into his first term, along with a number of other businesses and NGOs, watching him sign executive orders and directives to his agencies to implement energy efficiency regulations, programs, and policies. Arnold Schwarzenegger mentioned he took California's lead and increased corporate average fuel economy levels. We're going to double those by 2025, and that's going to mean big savings both in terms of oil used and dollars spent by consumers. The light bulb standards were actually enacted into law under President Bush, but the regulations guiding those have been under the purview of President Obama, and he's been moving forward aggressively on those to the benefit of consumers everywhere. And I'll just take a side note, because there's a lot of talk in the conservative press and in the Congress about repealing those lamp standards. I would urge you to go into Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever you shop, and look at the explosion of lighting options that are out there. And I just retrofitted my whole house, took out CFLs and put in LEDs. And I got to tell you, I am impressed. And the price points are good now. So we are making great progress. And don't let anybody tell you that those lamp standards are limiting consumer choice or the quality of the products that you're able to buy. The other thing that the President did in his first term was to invest heavily in energy efficiency and clean energy. This is a pie chart of the funding in the stimulus funds in 2009 that are now just starting to come to an end and flowing into the economy. But as much as 2/3 of the $75 million that we calculate as being available for clean energy activities went directly into energy efficiency programs and initiatives. And I just want to give you a snapshot of a couple of the big ticket items that were in there. Weatherization Assistance Program, $5 billion will be spent through the ERA program. We've weatherized over 1 million low-income homes in this country, and the average savings for those low-income families is above $400 a year. So we're returning funds to people in energy they're not wasting, not using, and making their homes and their lives more affordable. The Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant Program is peppering $3.2 billion into communities across the United States. You can see the stats here, 2,350 cities, allowing for energy efficiency upgrades in buildings, allowing for innovative financing programs, and a slew of other initiatives that are driving efficiency at the grassroots or the ground level. There's the Better Buildings Challenge, which is a challenge the President put out to the private sector and the government itself to improve the energy efficiency of buildings by 20% by 2020. It doesn't look like a great deal of funding, but that doesn't incorporate all of the millions that are being committed by the private sectors, and there's over 110 partners on this challenge, all working together to improve our existing stock of buildings. I want to show you a bar chart. This is historic funding in the United States into energy efficiency. The green wedges at the bottom are utility and state-level investment, and you can see over the course of time that those have been rising as well. But those big, bold pink bars are the investment that the federal government has made through the stimulus dollars during the Obama administration. It's made a very, very significant impact on the marketplace and on adoption of energy efficiency technologies, and also of building codes. The stimulus dollars to the states under the block grant program, the state energy program, were tied to states agreeing, the governors of states agreeing to adopt the most current building energy codes and then developing compliance plans. And we saw an uptick of adoption of new building energy codes from 10 states to 34 states in just a year's time, moving forward with more efficient codes. He also is working within his own shop, USA Inc., if you will. The federal government is the largest single energy user in our country, so what they do in terms of managing their energy use matters. And also, because they buy so much in the marketplace, their leading by example also helps to condition and drive new products and technologies into the market. In 2009, the President signed an order requiring each agency to establish a sustainability performance plan. He also, 2.5 years ago, about a year and a half, may have been a year and a half ago, I forget the exact time, established a goal of spending $2 billion in innovative financing in something called ESPCs, Energy Service Performance Contracts, within the federal agencies to allow them to upgrade their facilities. So he's putting his money and the government's money where their mouth is and making commitments to make energy efficiency upgrades. I don't have a lot of time to talk about any of these issues, but I thought you'd be interested in seeing that OMB was required under that executive order to start producing scorecards and measuring the agency's performance against the goals. And you can see here reductions in energy use in the buildings, and 17 of 25 agencies that have been reporting to OMB actually are on track to meet the target that was set in the 2007 Policy Act of reducing energy use by 30% in federal facilities by 2015. And you can see that the 17 of the 25 agencies already are at a 23% reduction by the end of 2012. So they are making great progress. We'd like to see them doing more, but again, they are making real progress toward the goal. So now what? He's got all this that he's working and underway in executive orders and implementing appliance and equipment standards. What's next? Well, out of the box on the State of the Union address, the President announced that he was undertaking a goal on behalf of the nation to double energy productivity. What he actually said in his speech was, we're going to cut energy waste in half in this country. But if you look at his plan, the plan is to double energy productivity between now and 2030. He also called for the creation of a program modeled on the state education Race to the Top, which was very successful and embraced by both Republican and Democratic governors to advance education in the states. He took that model and said, we're going to create an energy efficiency Race to the Top competition among the states to put in place forward-leaning policies and programs on energy efficiency, and he put $200 million in his FY 2014 budget to fund the creation of that and to provide these challenge grants to states. He also proposed a very bullish budget for all clean energy and energy efficiency included in that for fiscal year 2014. His budget increases spending to clean energy and energy efficiency by about 30%. Now, that's remarkable because the Budget Act isn't just swinging in the Congress. The President's and the administration and OMB has been swinging it too. So their statement that they want to continue to invest in this as a good return for our country and for taxpayers speaks volumes, and it's going to help us in the Congress. We're never going to get that 30% increase. We're not likely to get a budget, only a continuing resolution at this point, but it helps insulate us against further cuts and attempts to strip funding from programs that are so important and delivering so much to the American people. He also, and I think many of you know this, put a climate action plan in place, again, thinking differently and saying, if we can't move clean energy and climate legislation through the Congress, let's think differently. Let's think what we, as the executive branch, have the power to do. So he's looking at EPA regulations on power plants, new source power plant regulations. The ANOPR came out last week. The existing power plant regulations on CO2 emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, will be coming forward. There are going to be opportunities there to drive energy efficiency as a compliance measure. He's looking at post-2018 heavy-duty vehicle standards, reducing the barriers to energy efficiency investment, creating investment pools through the USDA, through HUD, grant loan programs, increasing funding to R&D, and looking at electric grid modernization. All of those activities under that climate plan have opportunities for advancing energy efficiency. So where did he come up with this goal of doubling energy productivity and moving that through energy efficiency? And let me stop to say the way we define energy productivity, and you can see it on this slide, is that we're going to get twice as much GDP out of each unit of energy. This is where the thinking gets different. We're not driving energy efficiency for the benefit to the climate and reductions of greenhouse gas emissions, though they're huge, and I'll show you that in a minute. We're not even really necessarily trying to push this on an energy security benefit basis, but you heard from Governor Schwarzenegger, that's front and center on a lot of people's minds. We're going to do this for the economy. We're going to do this because we are in an economic slump, and investing in energy efficiency will drive the economy forward and will make us more efficient, more competitive globally, and will free up dollars that we can spend more wisely in our economy. This goal was articulated by a commission that was chartered by the Alliance to Save Energy back in 2012. We actually rolled out a series of reports, and then in February of 2013, recommendations on how you could achieve that goal. And the recommendations, of which there are 54, are made for all levels of government, local, state, regional, federal, and also for the private sector, and I'll get into those. They cover all sectors of the economy, and to the point that the governor made, we tried to put forward recommendations that everyone could embrace, Republicans and Democrats alike. This is not a partisan issue. This is a people issue. This is an economy, our economy issue. So this is what it would look like if we doubled energy productivity. That blue line that you see is what EIA projects just as a business as usual. If we do nothing beyond what we're doing right now, we're going to see a 53% in energy productivity in our economy between now and 2030. So our job is to go double that, if you will, go up 47% more. And again, remember, we did this once before in 35 years, so we're just looking at compressing the time frame in which we would do it. And what does that look like in terms of our economy? The blue line is GDP. That's growth in the economy. We're going to grow at 2% per annum, our analysis suggests, even while we're lowering energy use. So we're decoupling for the first time growth in energy demand from growth in the economy. And what does this mean? The analysis, and I should say we had independent analysis done. This is not analysis done by an advocacy group. We actually went out and hired economists to look at this and say what this would mean. It would mean $327 billion in saving overall to our economy, and you can see the breakout between the sectors. But let's start looking at this. What's it mean to government? Remember I said government is the largest single energy user. We as taxpayers can save $13 billion on our bills for federal energy use. It's equivalent to the budgets for the Coast Guard and the National Park Service combined. What does it mean to consumers? We have to take this down to a level where constituents can understand it so that they can urge their members of Congress, urge their state and local policymakers to begin to take action to allow them to get these savings. Over almost $1,040, $1,039 a year to a family on savings. Our studies show that the average family of four in this country pays about $5,000, $5,200 a year on their budgets for transportation and energy use in the home. So this is cutting that very, very significantly. What's it mean in terms of the environment? This is huge, folks. If we're able to double energy productivity, it's going to take our CO2 emissions down to a third below what they were in 1995. So I would posit that we can get a long, long way towards the goals that Governor Schwarzenegger is laid out for us just by thinking differently and trying to improve the economy through energy efficiency, not trying to tackle it through making people feel guilty or even trying to put in climate legislation. We can do this through energy efficiency. The greater energy security, you can see the stat up here, but to the governor's point, if we're able to double energy productivity in the U.S., only out of our total consumption, only 7% of that total consumption would have to come from offshore. Gets us almost there to energy independence, which is a goal of so many. And again, you can see here it creates a whole lot of jobs. So how do we do that? The 54 strategies that our commission came up with really fall into, or recommendations really fall into 3 strategies. We've got to invest, we have to modernize, and we need to educate. And that really is the formula for success. It seems like a no-brainer, right? These are things that we know we need to do as a country, so let's get about doing that. Let's talk about those just a little bit. These recommendations, again, these are just some thumbnail sketches. There's 54 recommendations, and I invite you to look at those because they get much more granular. But financing is key. We've got to free up capital, make capital available to folks so that they can invest in energy efficiency upgrades. We need to look at tax reform and look at our tax laws and if those are impeding or supporting investments in energy efficiency, and make sure that we update those so that they will be not impeding but encouraging. We need to support energy productivity in innovation and market adoption. And again, governments at all levels, not just at the federal level, need to lead by example. They need to be early market adopters, and they need to show the way for the private sector. On the modernize, one of the recommendations that we made that the President embraced was that race to the top style energy productivity competition. We think that that is a very important way to leverage federal dollars to bring in non-federal dollars from the private sector, from the states, and from the localities. Another key recommendation was achieving energy productivity and making it a goal in regulatory and planning goals. And so we were very, very pleased to see the direction EPA is taking with its power plant rules, because we think that the administration is going to adopt this goal of trying not only to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from power plants, but to do that in a way that makes those power plants more energy efficient, more energy productive. Let me back up there. I'm not sure how to back up here. One thing I think that's very important too that we're seeing the administration really go gangbusters on is putting out appliance and equipment standards. They've had a lot of them in the hopper. They've missed legal deadlines for getting those out, but we're starting to see those gates open up and the standards come forward, and we will all benefit from that. On the educate side, providing information on building energy use and efficiency use, and I'm sure this is something that all of you probably firmly believe in as engineers. The federal government, the Obama administration, has a Green Button initiative where they are working with utilities on a voluntary basis to provide real-time data to utility customers on their energy use. There are building energy and ratings, benchmark, labeling, disclosure activities underway in the cities and to some level in projects and pilots at the federal level as well. And then improving corporate energy management and transparency is one of the recommendations, and I included this because we do have recommendations for the private sector, and this is something that we would like to see businesses around the country and really around the world begin to do. So I'm going to handicap now and come to an end. Can we do this? Can the president actually achieve the goal of doubling energy productivity, especially when he's got 3.5 years left in office and the goal takes us all the way to 2030? We believe it's a doable goal. And why do we believe that? We've been working closely with the National Association of Manufacturers, the Business Roundtable, the U.S. Chamber, all of whom are putting forward agendas, really for the first time ever, on what kind of public policies and what things need to happen to drive energy efficiency. And they're getting engaged and active up on Capitol Hill and in other circles in trying to look at how can we bump up and really take to scale efforts on driving energy efficiency. We've got state and local leaders, and you saw the best example ever in Governor Schwarzenegger, but that's really happening all across the United States. In communities and in states, there are innovative policies and programs and investment being made in energy efficiency. And then, of course, you have the environmental and public interest groups. It doesn't hurt to have the president as and using his bully pulpit as our energy efficiency champion in chief. And here I just restated some of the things that I just said. And very, very importantly, there's bipartisan support in the Congress for moving forward on energy efficiency in both the House and the Senate. Now, I mentioned the Shaheen-Portman bill, and it was pulled from consideration for the floor because they couldn't get over an impasse on a totally unrelated subject. But it was really refreshing when the bill was being introduced and laid out by the leaders of the Energy Committee and the sponsors of the bill. You saw a Republican get up, followed by a Democrat, followed by a Republican, followed by a Democrat, all agreeing on the amendments and all agreeing on the underlying bill that this is something we needed to do for the country. I take that as very great encouragement and that we will be able to move at the national level. But what's that going to take? It's going to take your help, and I hope you will join us. As the governor said, we all need to sort of adopt a new way of talking, a fresh way of thinking. And I believe talking about energy productivity and talking about improving our economy and a path forward that makes us stronger in the global competition, that improves our ability to create jobs, all while reducing greenhouse gas emissions significantly and making us more energy secure. It's a secret that the governor shared with us. He was able to do it in California. I think he's given us the right 3 lessons to emulate and the right way to start thinking about this. And we're doing that at the Alliance, and we would love to have you join us. Thank you very much for your time and attention.